Hello Ray class, it is Zambash back here after a long video drought. Sorry it's been such a long time. I know some of you were really looking forward to a couple of these build guides that are coming, but real life's been really busy. But finally, here we are back with the Pure Frenzy Bowserker build. As the name would suggest, this is a Berserker build that is purely focused around using the recently reworked Frenzy skill gem. I think it can be used in a couple ways viably at this point. It's still not like a top tier skill by any means in my opinion, but it is fun. This is the first bow build I've played in literally years, so it was a nice change of pace, and it definitely plays, or at least functions, a bit differently than most of the bow builds I've seen around recently. That's the reason I typically avoid bow builds, is to me they all just look the same pretty much, regardless of what you're using. They all seem to function the same way, but this one's a little different based on the use of this newly reworked Frenzy gem. The build's got pretty good clear speed, pretty good single target, mediocre survivability, but that's pretty common for a bow build, and you get to play from such a distance and put out a lot of fast damage anyway, so it's usually not too big of a deal. As usual, you can find links to all of the relevant resources in the video description, including a Path of Build link, as well as a forum thread and Reddit thread links. Those are probably the best places to ask questions, the Reddit thread in particular, but I do try to get around to answering video comments as well if you feel like leaving a question simply down there in the comment section on YouTube. So, with that being said, let's get into it. The first thing we'll talk about is one of the major problems you need to address if you are planning a Frenzy build, that being the prohibitive mana cost. Frenzy has a very high base mana cost, and when you start linking it up with a lot of gems, the total cost climbs really high, and with the rework it now grants more attack speed instead of increased attack speed per Frenzy charge, so you have a very high mana cost skill that you're using really fast, so mana becomes a major problem. Of course you're going to need some mana leech somewhere. I am using the Lionized Vision chest for that, along with the nice extra pierce link it gives us. But simply having mana leech is not enough, because your maximum leech rate is nowhere near enough to sustain the mana cost of pumping out frenzies nonstop. So in addition to mana leech, you are going to want all 3 pieces of your jewelry, your amulet and 2 rings, to have minus mana cost of skills crafted on them. You don't need the 3rd tier mod that costs like an Exalt a pop. You're fine with just the 2nd tier mod, so don't waste your money going for the 3rd tier. And additionally, you are going to need a Watcher's Eye with the mod that gives a minus mana cost of skills while affected by clarity. All of these things together give us just enough minus mana cost of skills that with some leech from Lionize we're able to sustain frenzying non-stop when we're hitting things. Now that you've satisfied the basic requirements for actually being able to use Frenzy, I'll talk about the other unique items I chose to use in this build. None of the rest of these are strictly necessary, but I think they are really good choices from the build and make it function a lot more smoothly. First off, we are using the Hemophilia Serpent Scale Gloves for the bleed explosions when you kill enemies. And of course, since we're playing a Frenzy build, you want to max out your Frenzy charges as high as possible, so go for a +1 Frenzy charge corrupt on those. And I've combined those with the Crimson Storm unique bow. It is a very cheap bow to get a really high amount of DPS against bleeding enemies. And between the bleed chance on crit from it, the bleed chance from Hemophilia, and using a chance to bleed gem, everything we attack is always bleeding. You can go for whatever mod you like as the extra veiled mod. I went for the 10% chance to deal double damage. I think it gave me the most total DPS. And you just want to go for as high a PDPS and a nice crit roll on that as you can possibly get. You could definitely go with a rare Harbinger or something to get higher theoretical DPS. But for the clear speed and utility, I think Crimson Storm combined with Hemophilia is really nice. For body armor, as mentioned previously, I'm using Lionized Vision. It gives you the extra pierce link, which is really nice, along with mana leech built into your chest. And now that Lionized Vision was recently changed to have that extra dex requirement added to it, it is really easy to roll the colors you need, unlike previously where it was almost impossible to use it for a bow build. I have also used a Starkonja's head for my hat. You definitely want to go for the increased damage per frenzy charge enchant on whatever hat you use. You could use a rat's nest. Basically we wanted to pick up some attack speed and crit here, but life is a bit of a struggle on this build as is, so I preferred the Starkonja's over the rat's nest for the extra life. We're also using Darkrai vectors. This is kind of a no-brainer for a frenzy build. They give us a ton of move speed since we've got all our frenzy charges up all the time, and they give us 1 extra frenzy charge. And I went for a corruption with chance to dodge attack hits because we're also using acrobatics to give us a little bit of extra defense. Finally, for the last unique, I'm using Dying Sun. The extra projectiles are very nice when clearing, and the extra area of effect does actually apply to the bleed explosions caused by your hemophilia. So they just round out your clear very nicely, and they make it so you can clear ads and stuff decently when you swap out GMP for slower projectiles in boss fights. For the rest of your gear, your priorities are going to be about the same as they'll be for any attack-based build. You want to get as much life and damage as possible while being sure to cap out your resists and cap out your accuracy, and you'll probably want to grab an intelligence roll somewhere so that you can level your ice golem to a higher level. That's optional, but obviously the higher level the better, and you've got plenty of affix room on this character, so you might as well grab that intelligence roll. For your other flasks, I recommend my usual catalyzed Eternal Life Flask of Staunching. We are a build that mostly runs around for mobility, so you'll definitely want a Quicksilver. We're a crit build, so you'll want a Diamond. And finally, we don't have any other good source of Onslaught in this build, so we use a Silver Flask. I recommend picking up Warding and Heat suffixes somewhere there to keep you safe from curses and make sure you don't get frozen. Now we'll take a look at the gem setups for this character. Your main damage setup in your chest is going to be Frenzy, linked with Chance to Bleed, Brutality, Greater Multiple Projectiles, which get swapped out for Vicious Projectiles on bosses, Impale, and Mirage Archer, and then of course you get your extra Pierce Link from the Lionized Vision chest. As a supplementary damage setup in our bow, I have a 5-linked Frenzy linked with Ranged Attack Totem, multiple totems, Maim, and Vicious Projectiles. These things don't really do a ton of damage on their own. Maybe if you did get a 6th link on your bow, you could make them do a little more damage. They're mostly just there to apply the Maim to make the enemies take extra damage from you. Then, for your main mana reservation setup, you have Dread Banner linked with Enlighten, Haste, also Ball Haste, and Precision. The Enlighten is pretty important. You don't need a top level one, just a level 3 one will do, and level 3 ones are really cheap a couple weeks into a league. And then you have another setup with Clarity. That's just a level 1 Clarity. You don't need to level it up. It's just there to make sure you activate that minus mana cost from the Watcher's Eye. Flame Dash for mobility. In a lot of the clips in this video, you'll see that I was actually using the Blink Arrow skill, but Flame Dash is definitely way better. And then you've got a Blood Rage. Finally, it rounds out with a cast when damage taken setup linked to Steel Skin and Temporal Chains for a little extra defense, and an Ice Golem in there to boost up your accuracy and crit chance. Next, we will walk through the passive tree for this character. You might think it would be pretty awful playing a bow character starting from a Marauder, but it's really not that bad, especially if you are going to be going for Impale anyways, which I recommend you do because Impale is one of the most broken mechanics in the game right now. So starting out through the Marauder, of course, we're just going to go through the life rather than any of the melee stuff. This is for your final tree, by the way. I did actually level this character to about 70 in Blood Aqueducts using melee stuff. I think I used two-handed axes because bows early on just is not really practical. Then you'll come down, go to the strength. You can pick up a lot of strength on this character, so I definitely recommend grabbing Iron Grip while you're over here grabbing these first cluster of Impale nodes and some life. You'll go through the second cluster of Impale nodes here by Swift Skewering. And you'll head up into the Duelist area, pick up some projectile damage and life, more life, frenzy charges, pick up all the frenzy charges on this character. Over toward the Ranger area through more life, so you're filling out most of your life here in the Marauder and Duelist area, and then you're just going to be grabbing all the typical bow nodes that you would on most bow builds. So you're going to grab the Lethality cluster here, King of the Hill up here, crit and crit multi, more life, frenzy charges, picking up jewel sockets along the way. We do grab Acro and go all the way through Phase Acro on this character as our sort of main layer of defense, because we don't have a whole lot of armor or evasion. We're mostly just based on this bit of dodge, and the dodge that we pick up from Darkrai Vectors keeps us decently safe. Go through your life and final frenzy charge, grab some accuracy and crit in the shadow area, more crit, and up into the final really good assassination node. And make sure you come back and grab this accuracy and crit over by the Marauder at some point. With that and a little bit of accuracy on gear, you should hit 100% chance to hit pretty easily. Of course, since this is a crit bill, you're going to be helping Alira for the Bandit quest to get that extra crit multi, and the mana regen and resistances are nice. For the Ascendancy, of course, I've chosen the Berserker since the build is called the Frenzy Bowserker. Your two important nodes are Flawless Savagery and Blitz with the nice reworked Berserker. These help us shoot really, really fast. And then because the whole point of this character was just that I wanted to shoot as fast as possible with a bow, I also grabbed the Rage nodes here, Crave the Slaughter, and Rite of Ruin. It's debatable whether those are actually the best nodes. You might be better off grabbing like Pain Reaver and Aspect of Carnage instead, or maybe even just dropping Rite of Ruin and grabbing Aspect of Carnage instead. But I wanted to shoot as fast as I could, and the build is pretty squishy already, so I'm not a huge fan of that increased damage taken on Aspect of Carnage, but that rounds out the Ascendancy tree. For your Pantheon choices, for your Major God, I recommend using the Soul of Solaris with the Joris Sky's Edge upgrade. That makes it so that you can't take chain crits. The main Pantheon thing isn't too big really because you're not typically near an enemy on this character, but the upgrade from Joris is really nice. For your minor gods, I recommend either using Gruthkul with the Arabic's Lightbane upgrade. The slowed attacks from enemies are really nice on that upgrade, and the other good option I would say is probably Rislotha. Refills your flask charges in long fights, and more importantly, the Gorilless Will Thief upgrade gives you 60% increased life recovery from flasks when used on low life. That makes it so your Catalyzed Eternal Life flask is really going to pump you up super fast if you pop it when you're on low life. A final note about the playstyle of the build, the clearing is pretty smooth overall, especially thanks to our Mirage Archer shooting as fast as it does and the nice bleed explosions stacking up from the Hemophilia gloves. Generally, you're pretty safe despite how squishy you are, just because we attack so incredibly fast on this build that with King of the Hill proccing crits, we knock everything back, so it's really hard for enemies to get close to you. The main things you really got to look out for, as with most characters in this league, are Maraketh Legions and high tier maps. Particularly the Flicker Strikers can really mess you up on a squishy ranged character like this. For bossing, it's really nice once you get into the fight and get things going. Of course, it has a pretty painful wind-up time at the beginning as you're generating your Frenzy charges, your Rage charges, and your Blitz charges. Once you get those up pretty high, then it's real smooth, the damage is really nice, and your Mirage Archer does a lot of damage when you're repositioning. But you just gotta make sure you're playing carefully and dodging the big hits in the beginning when you're slow because you're still building up all your charges. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you've had fun and been inspired to escape from the meta and go make a build that you enjoy regardless of how good it seems on paper. This build ended up being a blast despite it being a very niche skill and a very niche application. Again, if you have questions, you can ask them in the comments section below or in the Reddit thread linked in the video description. The best way you can help this channel grow is simply to watch the videos and share them with your friends, or going to the Reddit thread and upvoting that so the videos get more visibility when I post them there. If you feel like supporting the channel more directly, I encourage you to click the join button below the video. This is similar to becoming a subscriber on Twitch, and it will help you become a member of the channel here on YouTube. Stay safe out there, exiles, and I'll see you in Blight.